Sonic is a drive-in fast food chain that opened in 1953.
Hey, some of the great things of the 50s are still around, like the 50s combo at Sonic. A regular old-fashioned Sonic burger, great tasting fries, and a medium Coke Classic for just $2.29.
It's the best of the 50s.
The 50s combo, it's great, even if you're stuck in the 90s.
Like Sonic.
The Sonic concept originated in Shawnee, Oklahoma in the early 1950s. Troy Smith, a World War II veteran, operated a small diner called the Cottage Cafe, which, with only 4 booths and 12 counter seats, could not support him and his family. Smith sold the diner and opened a larger restaurant called Troy's Panful of Chicken. His attempts to expand into multiple locations were not successful, and by 1953, Smith's chicken restaurants had failed. Smith next dreamed of running an upscale steakhouse. In 1953, he purchased land at the edge of Shawnee, a 5-acre property that held a log cabin and included a root beer stand called Top Hats. Smith's original intent was to operate his steakhouse in the log cabin and to tear down the root beer stand to make more room for parking. To make ends meet, Smith drove a bread delivery truck in the morning and returning to the drive-in the afternoon to work through the evening. In the meantime, the root beer stand, which sold hot dogs and hamburgers, were averaging sales of $700 in cash per week. Customers would park, walk up to the stand to get food, and eat in their cars. He bought out his partner later on. The post-war boom in automobile purchases created an increasingly mobile public, and businesses developed to serve this new population. Fast food restaurants began to appear across the country. In California, many operated as drive-ins with covered parking spaces and a wait staff that roller skated to customers' cars. The drive-in concept soon spread across the country, particularly in the warm weather states. While traveling in Louisiana, Smith stopped at one of these new restaurants. It had an intercom system with homemade speakers that allowed customers to remain in their cars when they placed their order. Smith contacted the inventor of that system and ordered intercoms for his Top Hat root beer stand. Smith also constructed parking canopies, which allowed him to control parking in the root beer stand's lot, and hired car hops to serve his customers. Sales at this stand jumped to $1,750 in the first week after the intercom system was installed, and Smith quickly lost interest in his steakhouse. The Shawnee restaurant remained the sole Top Hat until 1956. In that year, Smith met Charles Papp, a manager of Safeway supermarkets, who was interested in starting his own restaurant. The two discussed Papp's restaurant plans, and Smith convinced him to dub his drive-in a Top Hat as well. They began to operate the restaurants under the slogan "Service at the Speed of Sound" and developed paper goods with the Top Hat name. By 1958, 2 more Top Hats opened in Oklahoma. Smith and Papp made plans to step up their franchise business. They soon discovered, however, that the name Top Hat had already been copyrighted. The pair consulted the dictionary, which they found the word Sonic. The term fit neatly with their slogan, "Service with the speed of sound." New signs and paper goods were developed, and in 1959, the Stillwater restaurant became the first to adopt the Sonic name. The partners soon received requests from other entrepreneurs to open their own Sonic drive-ins. Smith and Papp assisted their new owner-operators with choosing locations and designing the restaurant layout and operations. Formal franchise agreements were drawn up for the new restaurants. The new owners paid a royalty fee of 1 penny per sandwich bag, purchased through a central supplier. These franchise agreements contain no provisions for advertising, territorial rights, or fixed menus. Instead, Smith and Pabst's business operated mostly on handshake deals. Sonic operators were still most likely to be local businessmen, owning in part or in full their restaurants, and restaurants were often family-run. Sonic grew modestly through the 1960s. By 1967, the year of Charles Pabst's death, there were 41 Sonics in operation. Smith brought in two longtime Sonic restaurant franchisees, Matt Kinslow and Marvin Jurius, to run Sonic Supply, the company's supply and distribution division, while Smith continued to develop the company's franchise operations. In 1968, Sonic introduced the Piccolos, fried pickle slices. Franchises appeared in Texas and Kansas, and by 1972 there were 165 Sonic drive-ins. In 1973, Sonic Supply was restructured as a franchise company that was briefly named Sonic Systems of America. It provided franchisees with equipment, building plans, and basic operational instructions. They expanded rapidly. Sonic drive-ins were mainly in small towns and were soon in Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, New Mexico, Missouri, and Arkansas. By 1973, there were 200 Sonic drive-ins, an additional 75 were opened in 1974, and by 1975, Sonic was operating in 13 states. Between 1973 and 1978, more than 800 new restaurants were opened. During that 1-2-year period, more than one new Sonic drive-in opened each day. The rapid expansion of the chain created a shortfall in the number of trained managers. In 1977, the company established the Sonic School for Management Training. Franchisees operated most of the drive-ins and often made the store manager a business partner, even to this day. In 1983, the company's board of directors hired C. Stephen Lin as president. Lin identified a number of problems facing Sonic. Its licensing agreements, there were as many as 20 different agreements throughout the chain, did not bring in the revenue of the company needed to provide support services across the system that had spread through 19 states. A new franchise agreement in 1984, adopted by nearly 90% of the franchisees, provided the company with ascending royalties beginning at 1% of gross sales and rising to 3% depending on store volume. New franchises began to expand the company into new areas and redevelop markets that had been unsuccessful in the past. These developments, combined with a major advertising campaign featuring singer and actor Frankie Avalon, led to significant growth and a new image that made Sonic a nationally recognized name. In 1986, Lin, with a group of investors, completed the $10 million leveraged buyout and took the company private. Sonic's growth continued into the 1990s, and it went public again in 1991, raising $52 million in its initial IPO. By 1994, the corporation had renegotiated the franchise agreements with its franchisees. During the mid-1990s, Sonic opened 100 to 150 new stores a year. Between 1990 and 1994, they added nearly 400 new restaurants, tagging on more than 120 in 1994 alone. Beginning in 1998, Sonic began a retrofit program called Sonic 2000 to redesign and update all 1,750 stores in its chain to what was called a retro future look. The typical Sonic restaurant of the mid-1990s remained true to the 1950s style's car hop concept. Customers drove up to one of the average of 24 covered parking spaces, placed orders through an intercom, and served at their car. Restaurants also offered drive-through service, with some restaurants operating as drive-thrus only. In September of 2002, Sonic Corporation introduced PartnerNet to its franchisees. an intranet array of services which digitally linked all Sonic drive-in locations to Sonic Corporation. The new intranet provided advancements like credit card processing and video training. Sonic was featured in 2003 when it appeared in the comedic reality show The Simple Life, starring Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, who had to work at a Sonic in Altus, Arkansas. That same year, Sonic celebrated its 50th birthday by briefly adding the birthday cake shake to the menu. The chain would open its 3,000th Sonic Drive-In in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and the 3,500th Sonic Drive-In in the Chicago area. On January 5, 2005, the company started to install card readers in the drive-in stalls at its 544 company-owned locations. By 2007, the company opened its first store in the Northeast in New Jersey. In 2017, Sonic announced that it would be adding new stores in Hawaii. On December 7, 2018, Inspire Brands, owner of Arby's and Buffalo Wild Wings, announced the acquisition of Sonic for $2.3 billion. In September of 2017, Sonic opened its first location in Alaska. By 2020, Sonic unveiled a new drive-in design with an updated, wider layout for car docks and the drive-through lane, a new kitchen layout built for efficiency, and an aesthetic makeover. On November 21, 2020, a mass shooting occurred at the drive-thru of a Sonic drive-in in Bellevue, Nebraska. 2 people were killed and 2 others were injured by a 23-year-old man who was arrested. He also had allegedly made a bomb threat to the location before. A 12-year-old boy was arrested and convicted of murder for the death of a Sonic restaurant employee in Keene, near Fort Worth, Texas. Today, there are over 3,549 Sonic drive-thru locations in 45 states. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Thanks.